I see we have some folks joining, so we'll just give it about 1 or 2 more minutes and then we'll kick it off.
Is Arame here?
She is just about here. She said she is on her way.
Okay.
Yeah, so of course we'll wait for her to arrive, but it should be shortly.
Hi, Giulietta.
Okay, we're just going to give it 1 more minute. See, Arame's joined. Hi, Arame. You want to maybe just test your audio? You want to go off mute for 1 minute so we can make sure everything's clear? Let's see. Can you hear us, Arame?
Everybody.
So you're off. Oh, I think. Oops. I see you were off mute, but I didn't quite hear anything.
Maybe it's an external microphone.
Everybody, Arame connected.
There you are. Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for confirming. Now we can hear you.
Excellent. And for the person introducing me, Julia. My name is Arame, for whoever will be introducing me. Arame. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. Sorry about that. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and kick it off. It's 10:03, and so we've got a lot of great content. So thank you all for coming. Welcome. For those who are, perhaps this is their first time joining us. So my name is Juliana Biondo. I'm an assistant curator with the World Bank Art Program and one of the co-organizers for the We Are Africa project, of which this virtual exhibition is a part of. So the We Are Africa project is intended to really amplify a lot of the concepts that are being talked about with a lot of the World Bank research going on with the Africa Human Capital Plan. And each month, we kicked off last summer. Each month since then, we've been creating virtual events in which we do a deeper dive, combining World Bank specialists with artists on different development topics. So this month, we're focused on green recovery in Africa. We have a really great lineup of speakers. We have Fabrice, Monteiro, Elizabeth, And I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, but Wathuti, and then Arame, so representing kind of an artistic point of view, a climate activist point of view, and then of course a World Bank specialist point of view. We have a wonderful moderator, Douglas, who's going to kind of step us through this next hour in which we hear from the speakers and then go into a bit of a moderated discussion about how their different perspectives kind of converge and diverge on this idea of green recovery. And then we'll finish off with a Q&A. So thanks again for coming. Of course, to learn more about the We Are Africa project and our upcoming exhibition, it will be virtual. We'll have a link that we'll look forward to sharing. Stay up to date on either the art program's Yammer page or our intranet website, of course. And then lastly, for a couple housekeeping things, if you could just keep yourself on mute and your video off, except for during the Q&A session, that would be great. This way the speakers, when they speak, they kind of have the full bandwidth and they can have, of course, their microphones on and videos on. And also, please do feel free to enter your questions in the chat throughout the event and interact in that space. We'll be collecting questions at the end for the Q&A, and then we'll kind of go through them in as organized of a way as possible. So with that, I will hand it over to Douglas, who will get started.
Thank you, Juliana. And thank you to each of you for joining us today from your homes, your offices, or your living rooms from around the globe. My name is Douglas Dubois-Card Sebamala, a multimedia journalist, advocacy artist, and creative producer from Uganda. I'm the founder of a performing arts company, Sebamala Arts, which produces theater, film, and television for social change and empowerment of marginalized communities. I'm also the managing director of the National Queer Theater in New York and a winner of World Bank Blog for Dev and a member of Youth Transforming Africa. Among the many things that 2020 has taught us is that we need to quickly find adaptations and climate resistance plans for cleaner air quality, healthier water, and effective waste management in order to enhance biodiversity protection and reduce the vulnerability of communities to pandemics and improve resilience, but also have potential to boost economic activity, generate income, create jobs, and reduce inequalities simply by ensuring a green recovery and advocating for climate action. That is why the conversation today at We Are Africa, the Power of Women and Youth, is concentrating on a green recovery in Africa. We are hosting Fabrice Monteiro, an artist and photographer from Benin and Senegal, Kenyan climate change activist Elizabeth Wathuti, and we'll also have a conversation with climate specialist at the World Bank, Arame. Our first speaker, Fabrice, was born and raised in Benin, and he studied industrial engineering before eventually finding his calling with photography. His work explores diverse themes from terrifying visions of a world strangled by waste in his series, The Prophecy, which we are going to be able to have a look at today, and to other highly stylized portraits depicting Africa's forgotten history. Fabrice also addresses questions of society, politics, religion, and identity. Over to you, Fabrice. Fabrice, you're on mute.
Sorry. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the introduction, Douglas. I'm gonna go directly to the project that we're talking about here, which is The Prophecy. So what is the genesis of that project is that I arrived my first visit to Senegal was 10 years ago, and I was kind of shocked by the environmental state of the country. I grew up in Benin in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and I could see the difference in the environment and how much the kind of modernity that is imposing itself to the world through neoliberalism and globalization is totally disconnecting the people from their cultures. And these cultures are the link to maintain the connection with the environment. So I also realized that the kids from the new generation, they were born and raised into an environmental chaos. So how can you change something when you don't know how it used to be before? So I started to consider how I could maybe contribute to create some environmental awareness in the new generation. And so I came up with this idea of creating a tale that would combine art, environment, and animism to kind of catch the attention of the public and initiate a conversation about environment. Why animism? Animism because okay, I come from West Africa, from Benin, which is the cradle of voodoo, and from experience, animism still very important in West Africa. I mean, now people are Christians or Muslim, but this animism aspect is very pregnant in everyday life. So I imagine a story where Mother Earth would be sick and dying because she took millions of years to create a planet where we could breathe, where we could live in harmony with the other living beings. And the humans destroyed it are destroying it in a few hundred years. We're literally destroying this planet. So the idea was to have Mother Earth putting us spirits together and sending them down to Earth to send a message of awareness, of warning to the humans, and take their own destiny in their hands. Here, for example, you see one of the pictures that I made, which is about slash and burn techniques. Well, slash and burn techniques have been used in Africa for centuries and elsewhere, but what is happening now is that it's been used with so much intensity every single year that instead of making the earth richer, it's literally sterilizing it. And there's also, like that, I covered different topics such as plastic pollution, air pollution, ocean pollution, charcoal consumption. Here you can see the image about charcoal consumption when I put in opposition the traditional way to create charcoal with, if you see the headpiece, I used a solar panel from a solar oven to put in opposition these two elements, and the spirit would bring the question to say, why are we still using so much charcoal when we have all the energy of the sun to cook our food and do whatever we need to do with the heat. Also, this one which I did in Ghana was on Agbogloshi, which is one of the biggest dump site for electronic. It was I invoked Ogun, which is a spirit. In the Yoruba mythology, it's the god of iron and fire. So you need to know that what is happening on this dump site, for example, is that the kids are burning the cables to get the copper out of the and sell the copper, and that create a lot of toxic fumes, and that site is right in the middle of Accra. Also, do we have another example, Sarah, of okay, this one I did it in Kenya, and this one was about the cattle consuming plastics, because the fact is that plastic stays in their rumen and gets into the meat. So at the end of the day, we are the one who are putting all this toxic plastic into our system. So for this one, I invoked the story of Ngai, which is the god of the Maasai, and originally earth and sky were connected, and when they separated, Ngai had to go up to the sky, so he gave to his cattle to the Maasai so they can take care of it, because there was no grass up there. So the idea here is to confront the humans to what they have done to the landscape to make the the cattle missing their grass. So just to say that every time I make a prophecy, I try to connect with the cultures and connect with the beliefs of the country I'm working in, because I think that's really the connection that we forgot in a modern way of life. Because if you take all the First Nations, they still have this way of living in total harmony with the environment. And us as modern people, we should consider all that and try to evaluate towards something that is more inclusive to our original culture, instead of getting more and more away from it. Here, for example, this is the one that I did in Colombia about mercury pollution. Colombia is among the three most polluted countries from mercury in the world, and I choose to use the link of gold, because gold have been omnipresent from pre-Columbian history to conquistadores to modern days. The mercury is used into the production of gold and rejected into the rivers, and that's why I always try to connect it to the original history and the original culture of the country. So this is the work that I've been doing since 2013, and it's still going, because at first my plan was to do it for Senegal, but then I figured out that after making 9 prophecies in Senegal, I realized that when I get articles, they were pointing out again, it was about the cliches of poverty and dirtiness of Africa. But when you realize that while Senegalese would throw his rubbish in nature because of the lack of infrastructure, of the lack of environmental education, rich countries, they filled up containers with it and they will send it to the other side of the planet. So it's important for me to go global, to really recreate this balance between rich countries and poor countries, and the fact that if you want to, this is probably the most important challenge that humans have been through. And if we want to get through it, there's no way out than working together, not in an ethnocentric way, like it's been done for the last 5 centuries, but really start to do things together and toward a future that is brighter for the generation, the coming generation.
Yes,
That's
thank
what
you.
the prophecy is about.
Thank you very much, Fabrice. And again, speaking to prophecy, you are depicting a future that we should all want to live in. And I think there's such power in you fusing prophecy and using the spiritual, because coming from Africa, we are very in tune with our Mother Earth. She feeds us. She's from where life starts. And I think you capture that really well in your art, using those lonesome figures that I think also represent Earth. And, you know, Mother Earth with the forces of wind, water, and fire. You've brought all of that beautifully together. So thank you for using the power of the visual to continue communication like that. In 2017, Arame Tao, who is the team leader at the World Bank Group, came into the World Bank organization, and she became the leader for their action plan on climate change, adaptation, and resilience. Arame had previously worked for 15 years in climate adaptation and development, holding senior positions at the World Meteorological Organization, the research program on climate change and agriculture and food security, and Red Cross Crescent Climate Center. Arame is joining us today to bring a context to the beauty in the work that our artists and activists are doing, but tackling it with an approach from the work that the World Bank is creating and doing to serve our advocacy in change for climate action. Arame?
Hello, Douglas, and hello to all of our guests joining us today in this conversation. Thank you very much for having me in this for the glowing present introduction. I'm really glad to be here. And I need to first congratulate Fabrice for those amazing artworks. I think it speaks to the heart of the climate change challenge that's before all of us globally, because you marry what needs to be, what used to be, with unfortunately what our planet has come down to. And I need to pick on one of your works, the one from Kenya, I think it's called Ngai. I love that because it shows the hope in the midst of the pollution and the despair. So that's really where we are when you look at the state of our planet today and how we got to this climate crisis that we find ourselves in. Humans have lost that connection, that ethereal connection with our traditions and with our harmony, living with nature and living in harmony with the planet. So we broke that sacred equilibrium, unfortunately. And through industrialization in the past century, we've put so much carbon and GHG, so greenhouse gases, into the atmosphere that we broke the equilibrium of Mother Earth. We've broken that sacred bond, and today the result are all these climate impacts that we see manifest, certainly in Africa and globally, with sea level rise, and I saw some of the works refer to that, with global weirding. We've seen it in Texas recently, and in Africa, it's more intense rainfall and longer drought periods. So across the globe, we're seeing impacts of the damage that humans have created. I love that in your work, Fabrice, it's not all doom and gloom. The reality is stark, but there is hope in the future. The bank is part of that solution. And I'm pleased that when I joined the bank, one of the first works I was put to was to develop the new World Bank Group strategy on climate adaptation. How can the World Bank play its piece in rebuilding that sacred bond and helping the poorest countries in the globe to adapt to a new climate equilibrium and to the new reality of climate change. So I'm pleased that in 2019, our CEO then, Kristalina, launched this plan, which had three main tenets, as you'll see. It was to make sure that there's enough money and financing going to support countries to face the new climate challenge and rebuild some of those sacred traditions, polluting less, ensuring that we have less carbon emissions, but on the other hand, preparing for the sea level rise impacts, for the more intense storms that the climate change will continue to bring, looking at 2030 and 2050, and ensuring the World Bank Group mobilizes both public and private financing to help in that challenge. So that has recently manifested itself in the bank's commitment to scale up all climate financing, called climate co-benefits, to 35% of World Bank financing. So that's the first pillar of this plan. The second is that we would support governments to actually develop a new and more in-depth understanding on how climate change impacts everything, and will continue to do so, that we face, from agricultural production, and farmers in the hinterlands of the Sahel can speak to this directly, to tourism, to infrastructure, to aquaculture, and to all the economic sectors of development. Today, you cannot plan without keeping climate in mind, without keeping the safekeeping of our planet as part of regular development planning. And lastly, and this part has been delivered, we committed to developing a new metric system to measure how the bank's contribution is actually impacting change on the ground. But I'd like to point you to, just because this is a session focused on art, I'd like to point you to the cover photo we used for this plan. And if you zoom in a little bit, you'll see these three folks sitting on a bench. This is in northern Senegal, in the city of Saint-Louis. Fabrice, I hope you'll recognize this. And why we picked this picture is because we wanted to graphically show, just as I think Fabrice, you've done so well, we wanted to graphically show what climate change really means for humans living on the front lines of these impacts. So here, the young person looking to the west, trying to leave as they see these waves engulfing their homes. And then the older folks looking out to the sea, quite worried, this head of the household, and the woman with her prayer bead. So I think this is testament to the impacts that are very real. And as we speak, folks are dealing with these impacts on the coast of Senegal and across the West Africa coastline. The bank again here is an active participant. We have a program called WACA, for instance. If we move to the next slide, that shows you that with adequate resources and solutions, we can help governments to combat the growing impacts of climate. And I just pulled these from the internet because we see these memes exploding online after the COVID crisis, which I think gave the globe a better understanding of the level of action needed to be able to address and tackle the ruptured bond we now have with our planet. And if we want to have a planet to live in and to live one that our kids can live in, we will need to change our ways, change our production systems, invest more in circular economies, reuse, reduce, and ensure that we do not live the way that we did before. Otherwise, we will not indeed have a planet to bequeath to our children. You'll see on the right-hand side, this is a bit of a pun, but playing on the Suez Canal shipping blockage, we've seen an explosion of memes showing this is actually the gargantuan size of the challenge we had ahead of us, while the level of commitment globally from governments remains lackluster. We can move on to the next slide. What we do at the bank, and this is the last part I'd want to share, is that across these climate-sensitive sectors, be it transport, be it agricultural production, be it civil protection, disaster reduction, and in the center, back to Fabrice's work, coastal protection, there is a need to ensure that whatever investment we put in these sectors truly keeps in mind the critical importance of addressing climate change, both preparing for its worst impacts, which will keep coming. Unfortunately, there's just no way around that. And I love that Fabrice's work does not shy away from the doom and the gloom, because it's very real and it will continue for the foreseeable future. But on the other hand, we are still equipped as human beings in this world to play a part in the solution, by ensuring that we reduce our carbon footprints, and on the other hand, that we are aware and prepared to face the new climate normal that lies ahead. And this is certainly needed in the world's most vulnerable spots, where climate is just one added layer of vulnerability on top of existing poverty, existing conflict risk, and existing additional challenges. I wanted to end with the final slide, if we move on to it. This is a picture of me on the left side with one of our stakeholders in Bargny. I mentioned one of the projects that the bank is actively involved in. It's called WACA. It's a 160 million project, and it aims to indeed help women such as Yassine here, whom I was speaking to a couple of years back, to reclaim their homes, to actually still have a seaside to come to. And the seaside, I think Fabrice's work shows that well too, is not just a beachfront. It's memories, it's cemeteries where grandparents are buried. It's football pitches where, you know, this man on the picture grew up playing football with his folks. And for Yassine, it's her livelihood. It's where they fish and transform fish to sell to markets down in Dakar. So it's of critical importance that the bank continues the work that we're very deeply engaged in to support communities as they face the rising impacts of climate change. But I think in addition, beyond the bank, every human being on this planet has a role to play. Climate change is the existential crisis of our lifetime. And everyone reducing your footprint, ensuring that you can lessen and alleviate the planetary crisis we find ourselves in, and rather, you know, contribute, teach the next generation to live in harmony with the planet that we're left with. Everyone has a role to play in that regard. So again, love the work, Fabrice. I'm really glad that I could contribute to this conversation, and happy to answer any questions later. I'll stop here for now. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arame. And yes, there's going to be a couple of questions coming through toward the end. Please stay along, everyone else, so that we can have more engagement. And I find it really important that you said we cannot plan for the future without keeping the planet and its resilience and its existence in our conversations for development planning. So thank you very much, Arame. And I must also echo that it is important to have youth and women in the conversations when we're discussing issues of development, or whether we're talking about development in terms of climate, because women are the mothers of the earth and the youth are our future. That is why our next panelist, Elizabeth Wathuti, is a young Kenyan activist who is going to share with us why climate action, why climate change and a green recovery for Africa is very important to her. Africa is home to up to 2,366 bird species, and about 1,585 of these species are endemic to Africa. Elizabeth grew up in a forested region in Kenya, and I bet she grew up surrounded by the lush green vegetation in Kenya, those singing birds, and the diverse plantology of life. And she has devoted the rest of her work and her career to protecting this green generation through her work in climate change activism. Elizabeth, please share.
Let us be the boldest of the bold, and let us offer an example to the world.
I was lucky to grow up in one of the most forested regions in Kenya. And I remember planting my first tree at the age of 7, and even being able to see clean streams that I could directly drink from. And I would say this connection made me develop a very strong love for nature. I got to feel angry about seeing people cutting down trees and even passing by places and finding people maybe throwing trash out of car windows. My name is Elizabeth Wathuti. I'm an environmentalist and a climate activist, and I'm working to create a livable world now and a safe future for all by inspiring the young generation. We want everyone to understand that nature is a part of us and not apart from us. Nairobi River has, of course, been polluted as a result of different challenges, and the contributors can be citizens and also bigger industries at the same time. So every person is a part of this problem. And so at one point in time, I took children to see the state of the pollution. And I remember that I could see the sadness in their eyes. I could see that they were very much devastated. And of course, two questions that these children asked me, and one of them was, who did this? And the other question they asked me was, what can we do about this? So I thought to myself, why not create a generation of young people who are environmentally conscious and who can have that chance to also connect to nature at a young age and love nature at a young age. And what happens when you love something? Are you going to destroy it? No. Are you going to interfere with it? No. If you love a tree so much, are you going to cut it down? No. I decided to begin a campaign that I dubbed Adopt a Tree campaign, whereby I would ensure that every child in every school in my country gets a chance to plant and adopt a tree each in their school compound. It's not just about planting a tree, it's about planting a tree, watering it, nurturing it, and making sure that that tree grows up to maturity. Because just like we human beings need tenderness and we need love and we need all the care to survive, the same thing we need to put when it comes to how we address nature. Much of what I do is about changing people's mindsets and perspectives about appreciating the natural world. By working with young people in this way, I feel so much hope because the young people are courageously stepping up and standing up to shape the kind of future that they want to see. And this makes me feel hopeful about the future of this country and the future of the world. Thank you so much. So the reason why I wanted this video to run before I speak is for you to understand where this is coming from. Because having got that opportunity to grow up in the most forested region and in a place where I could drink from clean streams and rivers, and in a place where I could stay close to the forest and the trees,
is something that made me have this strong love and connection to nature. But beyond that, I also felt heartbroken witnessing deforestation at first hand. And I think these are some of the things that I would say made me angry. But this anger, of course, did not stop at that. It also gave me a hunger to want to do something about the challenges that I was witnessing. And of course, right now, as the entire human race, we have greatly disrupted the human and ecological balance. And it's really evident that the damage that we are causing to our planet today has continued to have negative impacts on our health, on our well-being, and even on the road towards a sustainable future. And that is why, for me, I'm on a mission to fight for nature's regeneration and to ensure that we keep all our remaining natural ecosystems intact. Because I believe that doing so is a critical part of tackling the climate crisis. And when I founded Green Generation Initiative in 2016, my vision, of course, was to do something about the challenges that I was witnessing as a young person, the challenges ranging from deforestation, pollution, and you have seen from that video. So these are the things that made me feel angry, and I thought to myself, why is it that not everyone appreciates or rather values nature in the same way that I do? And that is why I got the idea about having young people connect to nature. And along the way, I also started to discover that there were more and more problems that were affecting the children as a result of the climate crisis. And one of the challenges, of course, was food insecurity. So when I started this initiative, my focus was to make sure that every child would get this chance to plant and adopt a tree each in their school compound. And of course, to help increasing the forest cover in my country, which is still below the 10% required minimum by the UN, we are at 7.3%. And I thought to myself that every person's contribution can really help us get to where we want to get as nations and get to where we want to get as a world. So I started this campaign, 1 tree, 100 trees, and up to thousands of trees with different young children. And so along the way, when I would get to these schools and teach the children about conservation, and even when I would take them to places where they would understand what is happening to the environment, for instance, taking them to the nearest stream that is polluted for them to understand about pollution, I realized that there were so many other challenges that the children were facing. And one of these challenges was food insecurity. And at one point in time, I remember asking the children to take a break, and I noticed that some of the children actually were left in the classrooms when the others were having their lunch. And to my surprise is that these children did not have anything to feed for that day. So that means they would stay a whole day without food in school. And so we decided to start planting trees that would have an impact in their lives. And this is where, after the Adopt a Tree campaign, we introduced food forest establishment. I would pick a designated corner in the school compound and then plant mixed species of fruit trees. And what that would mean is that apart from connecting these children to nature and apart from increasing the country's forest cover, these trees would also provide a nutritious source of food for the children to consume at least every day, and to also supplement the school's feeding program. And to me, I see this as a huge opportunity towards a green recovery, because even in the middle of a pandemic, people are still being greatly impacted by the climate crisis. And these children, these young people, these women who are the most vulnerable and don't have to be, are the people that we need to also be focusing on right now. So this initiative for me, I think, has been a turning point for most children in my country. And I've been able to reach out to over 20,000 school children so far, even with minimal or no resources at some point. And this project has, of course, been impacting these children greatly, because they are not only changing their mindsets and perspectives, but they are also taking the same to their families, to their communities, to the nation. And I believe that is how we end up changing the whole world in general. This initiative, when I began it at some point, it was about identifying schools that do not have an aspect where the children can connect to nature. And so there was a lot of fact finding going to schools, especially the public schools, where I would find schools that do not even have a single tree, schools that do not even have grass for the children to sit under. And it was really sad to see that they have to live in this condition. And so when I started this initiative, I thought of transforming the schools and giving the children a perspective where they can be able to also love nature and connect to nature at a young age. And so this initiative goes beyond the tree planting, because it's also about a green model that ensures that these children are able to benefit and adapt some of the impacts of the climate crisis, like the food insecurity, And in addition to the food forest, we also do kitchen gardens and 3R's Corner, where we teach these children about how they can make use of waste in their school compound to even grow food. And for example, is where we have the sacks where they put soil in, and they're able to establish a small kitchen garden for them around their school compound. Because at the end of the day, it's about putting them at the center and understanding that they are affected by this crisis. And unless we recognize that they can be the solutions, then it's going to be difficult for us to address this crisis. And I think our response to the COVID-19 pandemic has also taught us some very key lessons towards fighting the climate crisis. And I think with such projects, we need to continue accelerating actions for a sustainable future. And by also making sure that we have practical environmental education, because it is important to let people know about the climate crisis. It's important to let people know that we need to have a green recovery, but it's more and more important to make the young generation understand practically about what is happening to the world, because that's the only way that they will get to understand, and also make them understand that they are a part of the solution, and then involve them in being part of the solution. And so many young people like me are tapping into their passion, their skills, and the little available resources that they have to speak up for climate action and to also mobilize for nature-based solutions. And of course, we need to support these young people. And I would just like to highlight a few ways in which the young people need to be supported. And one of them is giving them a voice, which is for this reason why I appreciate and I'm grateful for this opportunity to showcase my work to you today, because I believe that placing the children and the young people at the center of every decision that we are making today is going to directly impact on their future. And the other thing is to build resilience by all means, to ensure that the people that are the most vulnerable, and of course, who happen to be the young people and the women, have the capacity to withstand the climate shocks, because this is happening each and every day, and it's no longer a future concern. And then the other thing is to finance towards nature-based solutions that ensure that people and nature thrive, because these solutions, of course, need to be scaled up in order to continue having a wider impact. Because in this conversation, we are no longer looking for new solutions. People on the ground that are affected are already working on such solutions, and it is upon the world to focus on scaling them up. And then the other thing is to ensure that we help in this fight to make the world a better place for everyone, by also pulling investments out of every activity that is fueling biodiversity loss and every activity that is fueling deforestation. And of course, for the young people that I work with, these are the things that they are also championing for, and also calling upon their leaders, the world, and everyone else to join in this conversation and to join in this action and in this fight towards a sustainable future, because we all need to have a livable world. And of course, we believe that a safe future is not going to be possible if the world is not livable right now. And I would like to just end with a quote from Professor Ngare Maathai that really inspires me up to date. And she's been one of my greatest sources of inspiration since childhood. And she always said that those of us who understand and who feel strongly must not tire. We must not give up, because the burden is on us who know, and those who don't know are at peace. And it is us who know that are caused and are greatly disturbed and are caused to take action. And that is why today, everything that is happening to nature angers me, and does not stop at the anger, but gives me a hunger to want to continue doing something about it through these nature-based solutions that I have shared with you today. And so as I finish, let me remind everyone that every day and every minute and hour that passes without urgent action translates to failing the future generations. And you have seen them in those pictures, that they are not waiting for anyone to invite them. They are already taking action, and they will continue to take action for the sake of their future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Wathuti, for that very intensive discourse on what we can actually do as a community, as leaders, and as individuals to contribute to climate action and a green recovery in Africa. Very, very well addressed and thought out. Thank you so much. As we move into the next segment of questions, I encourage you, everyone who's joining us online today, to engage with us with questions on what you think has either captured you from the conversation or what we ought to do. But as we get there, I want to ask Elizabeth and Fabrice that you both have been able to work in Nairobi. I know, Elizabeth, you have a project that you're also working on, Daima. And for your work, Fabrice, that portrait that is on the artwork for this talk today was shot in Nairobi. Where do you think you as activists and artists can come together to increase this conversation on climate action and green recovery? And how can organizations that have interest in climate action, like the World Bank, support the work that you do?
Thank you so much. Maybe to begin with, I think it's important to highlight that the COVID-19 pandemic has hit on the cities the most. And it is these same cities where we can either win or lose the road towards a green recovery. And so for me, I definitely see a huge opportunity when it comes to the green spaces. And like you've highlighted, Daima is a coalition of civic actors who have come together to advocate for the protection of green spaces and to also make sure that people value and appreciate green spaces within the city. And of course, right now, a good example is what is happening in Nairobi City. We are talking about a green recovery, but if you walk around the streets of Nairobi, you will see so many trees either felled or so many trees have an X mark to show that they are in line and they're going to be brought down for the sake of development. So I see a huge opportunity in terms of how can we better tell the story of green spaces maybe within the city? How can we better let people understand that they are not just structures? These trees mean everything to our survival in the cities. We need them to also clean up our air. We need them in terms of our survival. It's not just a tree with branches. There's a lot of things in that tree. So for me, I think one of the biggest opportunities I see is how do we better tell the story of these spaces and how can we make people appreciate them? And most importantly, how can we make our leaders appreciate and understand that we can strike a balance between these spaces and development. And it's not about seeing the spaces as an opportunity to, bring the trees down and put up roads. So I think this is one of the ways. And maybe also another way that organizations like the World Bank can help is to support in amplifying some of these messages. Sometimes you have to be on the streets to speak up for the trees. And of course, nobody listens even then. And at some points, it's not easy to even be on the streets. It's not even safe because you have to be there and you have to really be careful because you'll probably be kicked out of the street. It's no longer safe for us to express ourselves and say that this is the kind of city I want to see post this pandemic. And it's no longer safe for us to even say that we need it to be, to be clean, green, and resilient. So I think it would be important for organizations like World Bank to support such initiatives and to also, like I've mentioned, invest in nature-based solutions, because it is all about where we are investing our human and financial capital right now to make sure that this world recovers in a green way.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Fabrice, in terms of support and how to address climate action, what do you think? What kind of support would you need? And also looking at this picture, the figure stands right out of earth, and you can see the issue that you address very ardently in your work, which is trash and waste management. How do you think organizations can continue to support your work, and how do you plan to echo more messages to action to get individuals involved?
Well, first, I think that the most important thing is that we all need to realize that we're going to need a global movement to make things change. And in order to have a global movement, the first thing we need to concentrate on, I believe, is education. Educate the new generation. Like what was said before, a lot of we don't realize that a lot of the youth they're not sensibilized to the issues yet. And is really that's the work that I'm trying to contribute to, is really to create bridges between continent and cultures and really initiate a movement that would be global. When I create a tale like The Prophecy, is somewhere in my mind, my dream would be that a little kid who would read the tale would come back to his parents and say, "Oh, Dad, we cannot throw garbage like that anymore because the spirit of plastic said that we have to be careful now." And I think the great thing with art is that it talks directly to the heart, and from there it can initiate this conversation that is going to slowly make the people move and realize that the modernity that is offered to us to them right now is not a future, and somehow we have to come back to to our traditions to create a future that is viable, that is that could be constructive instead of being destructive as it is right now. So right now, the biggest issue personally that I have is that when I decided to go global, it involved a lot of production, and every time I have to find new partners to create prophecies. So I've been working with different with the UN, also universities. But that's to me the main issue is to really have the possibility to go around the world and make a global prophecy to have the most impact, not only on the youth of Africa, but in a global manner.
Nice. Thank you for speaking to that, Fabrice. Again, I echo that this is a global issue and that it is impacting us directly wherever we are. I'd like to hear from Arame, in terms of the projects that the World Bank is doing in Senegal with WACA. Do the people in the grassroots fully understand how we can correlate climate action and green recovery to our sustainability with like food? I know that Elizabeth is working on in schools, planting trees that can also facilitate nutritional and feeding needs of these children. Do programs interlink economic recovery, green recovery to feeding and food? Do communities understand the impact on the grassroots? Aram?
That's an excellent question, Douglas. There's multiple ways I could answer that. First, all World Bank projects have a local citizenship action plan. So WACA, as with all programs, would have an engagement plan to go with it to ensure that local communities indeed are positively impacted and are fully engaged as citizens in the design and the implementation of the program. Now, WACA is focused on coastal resilience and ensuring that coastal sea level rise risks are well combated by the local population. Is it linked necessarily to food security? Not in this program. I do want to confirm that nexus approach, that's how we intellectualize it, the nexus, so the linkages of sea level rise and food production and resilient transport, that's the way forward to ensure that we don't work in silos, and indeed we link these different aspects of building resilience to rising climate impacts. I do want to add one point. It doesn't directly answer your question, but I think it's very interlinked. It's the need to ensure that I loved Elizabeth's section. I see in her, by the way, Wangari Maathai, reincarnated in another generation. So well done on all that wonderful work, Kenya side. But what I would like to underscore is the need to ensure that as we train the next generation, which really is the future, in ensuring that they have practices and behaviors that are conducive to a viable planet, as simple as that, as Fabrice said earlier. It's important that they see the importance of food choices and agricultural practices as interlinked to ensuring that the planet survives. And what I mean by that is that the practices themselves of food consumption, what you decide to eat, what you decide to grow and how you grow it, are also a big contribution to the carbon footprint that people leave behind. And I see agriculture as one of the most promising sectors for combating climate change. So from sea level rise to food agri, whether linked in a project or not, they're blessed to enabling our ability to combat climate change. And women and youth are at the center of that balance.
True. Thank you so much, Aram. And this is my last question to you, Elizabeth and Fabrice. As activists and as artists, how do you feel? what has been your greatest challenge in addressing climate action? Is it public reception? Is it translation of the work that you're doing for the publics to personally and individually engage? Where is your biggest challenge?
Thank you. One of my biggest challenge, of course, is changing the mindsets of the people, because you get to the ground and understand that people do not resonate with the same thing that you're saying. People do not appreciate or understand about the natural world in the same way that I do. And so this challenge, I take it as an opportunity to also continue changing the mindsets of the people, because at the end of the day, this is what this is all about. It's about making sure that people understand and appreciate nature for what nature is. And I think it's been challenging also, for example, getting to the urban areas, in places where people actually have not gotten an opportunity to grow up understanding what nature is all about. And I think for me, this is the kind of balance I've been trying to balance out, because I tell people that you don't have to have grown up in the most forested region among trees or in clean streams like I did for you to understand and value nature and for you to be part of nature conservation. But you can be from the cities and understand that there are challenges happening in the cities and do something about it. And that is why you walk in the streets and find people, you find people seeing trees that have been marked for felling or they are felled, but they do not feel anything about it. For me, I feel so heartbroken seeing that, but there are people who will not see a problem in that. And I think for me, this is a huge challenge, but also an opportunity to continue changing the mindsets of these people. And then my other challenge, of course, has been trying to scale this up. How can I make sure that I reach out to all the children? And for instance, right now, I've been able to cut across 8 counties in Kenya. We have 47 counties. And of course, my vision is to reach out to all of these 47 counties and reach out to other young children beyond the 20,000 that I've reached out to right now. And also, I didn't mention the impact of the tree seedlings, but so far I've been able to do over 30,000 tree seedlings, and they've all had a 99% survival rate as a result of the Adopt a Tree campaign. And of course, these are fruit trees and indigenous trees. And so my vision has always been to impact more young people and to also make sure that this project is impacting more and more young children across the counties. And of course, the aspect of trying to, how can I collaborate, partner with more people, reach out to more individuals that really support this initiative so that we can be able to reach out to more and more people out there. And I think this is definitely, because I always get going because of the positive stories of impact that I get from the children and the schools that I work with. And so that's what keeps me wanting to do more for more other people and for more regions, and even possibly expand beyond Kenya, because I think this is a model that can apply all over the world.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that question. That had just been echoed in the chat. But let me send that question of challenges over to you, Fabrice, as we head into our wrap up.
To me, the biggest challenge is access. Because every time I create an image, I want it to be as much readable as possible and as much impactful as possible. So my challenge is to find the site that is the most representative of the environmental issue that I'm treating. And sometimes I have a lot of difficulties to have accesses, because it tells me also that I think this the companies are aware of the damage that they are doing, but they don't want to change. And I think to change this mindset, like Elizabeth said, to really have, because on a personal level, you can change the way you live in, you can compost, you can do a lot of little things, but the truth is, if the whole system doesn't change, we're not going to go anywhere. So I realized that in the difficulty to have access to sites, that the most of the companies, most of the people are aware of the damage that is done now, but it really feels like, okay, we are in this bus. This bus is getting straight into a wall, but we're gonna push even more, and we're gonna accelerate so we can make as much as we can before everything blows. And I think this is to me, this is the main challenge now, is really to change that mindset and say, we can have a life, a better quality life with owning less things, because we've been convinced that possessing things would give us happiness. And I see that also around me here in Africa, how the mentalities are changing, and people want to acquire things and have nice cars, and they refer to the Western world. But I think this is totally wrong. Instead of that, we really need to come back to something that is more harmonious and balanced with the world we are living in. And that would be the biggest challenge to me. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Fabrice. And yes, I echo, we all bear responsibility. So as we conclude, I want to remind each of us to pay tribute to the original inhabitants of the lands that we occupy, whether you're in Africa and you occupy the lands of the Jans and the Azanians in Eastern Africa, or the Pygmies of Western Africa, or you currently occupy the original lands of the Khoisan people of South Africa. Let's remember that we all bear responsibility to protect these lands and to make sure that the future generations of the youth and women and young people growing in the world after us have a green world to live in and a planet that can actually thrive. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm Douglas Dubois-Card Sebamala, and let me hand over to Juliana.
Wow, thank you all so much. I'll keep it brief because I know we're at time, and this was just so fantastic. I think it really opened up our minds to understand a lot of the nuance of whether it is access to even understanding the right story and how to tell it for the most impact, to understanding what the tangible act of planting a tree does in the psyche of the next generation, to Arame's kind of display. I really liked that image with the waves. I know it's obviously a scary one, but it communicates very well how our sense and our perspectives and how relative we understand this challenge really needs to be constantly pruned and updated and made sure to be kind of clear. So thank you for all of that. I know we didn't get into the Q&A, but in all fairness, we didn't see anything in the chat, so we thought to let our panelists really go, and they have so many wonderful, rich things to say. So with that, stay in touch. We hope that these artists, activists, and more details on the World Bank projects have brought new light to your understanding of these channels. And should anyone ever be interested to get in touch with Elizabeth or Fabrice, I assume as we're mainly World Bank staff, you have Arame's contact. Please don't hesitate to reach out to the art program, and we're more than happy, and equally with Douglas, to be a conduit for that. So thank you, and be on the lookout for our exhibition, our virtual exhibition. Fabrice's work will be featured in that as well. And I think that'll do it for us today. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank you. This was great. Have a great day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy it. Bye.